y'all. It's your girl, Dr. Malika, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me on Pivot with Dr. Malika. Listen, we've got a fantastic episode here. Y'all know we've been having some good guests up on here telling us their stories, their pivot experience, dropping information, sharing so much of what they do and what they know with the Pivot family. And today, on this episode of Pivot with Dr. Malika, I am excited to bring you Shawnika Hunt. She is the CEO of It's Dope to Serve LLC. She's here to talk about her pivot experience from the time that she found out that she was diagnosed with breast cancer and so many other things that she's doing, how she is not just a survivor, but I love the word thriver. She is thriving in this thing, but she keeps it so real with you. And so, Pivot family, I want all of you, okay, to get excited for my next guest, Shawnika Hunt.
Hi.
Hello. And welcome to Pivot with Dr. Malika. Listen, this is a long time coming, seriously.
Yes, yes. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate this.
I am so glad we finally were able to come together and, finally get you on the show. I have to say that I n- we connected through her husband, Brandon, who I have known for a while now. And I've known you, I've social media known you, you know what I mean? I've IG known,
Yes,
right? So
right.
and his wife. Oh, okay. But now I feel like we have connected and are longtime sisters who just met, but just like, dang, we've been talking and really bonding. And I'm so glad that you were able to be on the show.
Yes. I do feel like you're my long lost sister. We did bond like immediately.
Immediately. So there's so much. I introduced you and shared that you were the CEO of It's Dope to Serve. And I know
Mhm.
that you're to talk about your pivot experience. But even before that, what I'd like you to do is talk to the pivot family and tell us, who is Shawnika Hunt?
Ooh, well, I am not only someone that has endured or thrived or survived breast cancer, but it wasn't something that broke me. Is
Mm,
something that rounded me out more. It made me realize that that is something that I do not want to see anyone else go through.
mhm,
And in that, I've decided to start advocating
mhm,
for women that first it was women that look like me. And
mhm.
then I started noticing in the Pittsburgh area that there were also people below the socioeconomic divide that just didn't have access.
Yeah,
So being someone that grew up that way, I was just like, wait a minute, there has to be something
yeah.
that we can do to help. So that's kind of where it started. And also like having like a side effect that nobody understood.
Mm, absolutely. And we've talked, I guess, again off camera, and
Mhm.
there's pieces of breast cancer that folks don't even know, right?
Yes.
Not just it's like breast cancer and it's like the blanket. No, there's breast cancer, there's the stages, but there's also the levels. And I'm not even sure if I'm saying the levels correct, but
Subtypes.
the subtypes. And the one thing that we were able to, before we even connected, the one thing that we found out is that, you know, I am a supporter and for my mother,
Mhm.
who today is, I think she has 6 more treatments to
Oh,
go. Yes, and so we have just been through, from the time she was diagnosed with breast cancer till now. It's a journey. It is a journey. And it is the
mhm.
learning, right? So what and you have doctors explaining the subtype and what that means, right? Uh,
Yes. Mhm.
that that impacts the medications or the
Mhm.
path in order to address the subtype. I mean, there's so
Mhm.
much to. So, talk to the Pivot family a little bit about your that day. that you went from not having cancer to being diagnosed?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I think, like a lot of women, I was raised in a young family. We were married, and then I'm also a part of a moving family. So I'm not a military family, but in the NFL family, you move around a lot.
Hmm.
So you may not be with family. So
Okay.
at the time, it was in my thought process, it was an inconvenient time. My oldest had to have his tonsils taken out. It was time for Christmas, and I got a phone call from my cousin saying, "Hey, did you get a mammogram?" And
Mm.
I was like, "No, we don't have, breast cancer or any cancer in our family."
Right,
And so she was like, she was like, "Girl, what are you talking about?" And
right, right.
so I was like, "Let me," and I had just actually had my annual. So, they always check for a lump, and I,
Hmm.
I do as well. So I went for my mammogram and it came back abnormal. Um, my husband made some phone calls and everybody was like, the first one is always abnormal.
Okay.
So I actually put it off until next year.
Mm.
So it wasn't until January, mid-January, I went back and they did another diagnostic testing on me, and I had calcification. So I did not have a lump. It was calcification in my breast, and that led to some more diagnostic testing as well as a biopsy. Um,
Now, let me ask you questions just for
mhm,
clarity for our viewers. Is
mhm.
calcification, is there a hardening that takes place there?
So the calcification eventually can turn to a lump, but
Uh,
depending on your subtype. So if you have lobular breast cancer, that's not going to turn into a lump, which is why you have to stay under constant testing,
Okay.
as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of treatment for lobular, but yeah, so it does not turn to a lump.
Got you. Okay.
Mine could have,
Hmm.
but it was caught early, so I was stage 0.
Okay.
Um, but honestly, I didn't think about it. I actually got a phone call in the drive-through of McDonald's to let me know my diagnosis, and my youngest son was in the back seat in his car seat.
Mm.
And so they just asked me if I had a surgeon. I didn't because I was new to Pittsburgh at the time. And just
Okay.
so happened, a lovely woman, deaconess at our church, she was a doctor. I called her and she gave me a surgeon. So
Mm. Wow.
that started my journey.
Talk about how you pressed through that time, like from the time you heard and then you had to make all of these changes and call doctors and get diagnosis, and how did you press through that? How did
Um, it's funny because I do think that there are women out there that are able to process it in the moment. And then
Hmm.
I think that on varying degrees, there are some of us that just compartmentalize it. And like I said, that's kind of what I did. I would go to the doctor's appointments and then I would come home and I was mommy and I was wife. And then of course, during the dark times at night, you're kind of trying to see what's going on or
Hmm.
um, things of that sort. I will say one thing that really, really did help me get through. There was a blog, and it was called "For the Breast of Us."
Okay.
No, no, I'm sorry, the young and the breastless.
The
Um,
young list. Okay.
yes, and she made as hard as this is, there was humor in it. She found the humor in it, and she was very raw in her descriptions of like she documented everything. And that was my way of because I was also managing everybody else's feelings about it.
Okay.
So I don't think there was time for me to process it. So I will
Mhm.
say that blog definitely got me through it. And then I ended up getting to meet the blog writer, and I became really close friends with 2 other, we call each other breasties, from that.
I love
Yes.
that. I love that.
Yes. Yes, but Jennifer's blog helped me a lot.
So blogging, meeting folks, meeting her, who she probably connected you as well.
Yes, because yes, and they were advocating at the time that I met them. They were,
Okay.
yeah, they were advocates in the Washington, DC area,
Okay. Okay.
in Maryland, yes.
So you find out, going through the McDonald's line, you find out you're
Yeah.
pressing through, you're connecting with women who are experiencing or have experienced or what you are experiencing with having breast cancer. I want to circle back to something that you
Mhm,
said. Sometimes we hear women say they're stage one, stage two, stage three. And I
mhm.
heard you say stage zero. And
Yes.
that for me. I've never heard of stage zero. And so
Mhm.
is that discovering it in the
Early.
early? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When you're stage 0, that means that the, breast cancer is non-invasive, it's still in the milk duct.
Okay.
And there's not a guarantee that it will ever become evasive,
Okay.
which means that you will actually get tumors that you can actually feel and start to
Hmm.
grow outside into the, breast tissue. So stage 0 usually is a really good sign to catch it at stage 0. However, by the time I had surgery, I was actually stage 1.
Okay.
Yes. So I was stage 1 with no lymph node activity. However, if my staging had not changed, then I would have had the surgery and there would have been no medication on the table for my particular diagnosis.
Okay. Okay. And that also depends on your subset, correct?
Yes, yes.
Your-
And I've also found, like, your doctor as well.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
And did you feel like you had, doctors that were supportive and with you and sensitive to you? Does
Mm.
play a part in, or I guess maybe I should ask, does that also play a part in your process, your journey, the kind of
Yes.
support that someone has?
That and now that I'm, like, on the other side of that aspect of it, that
Mhm.
actually plays a huge part, and that is actually what I first started advocating about, because
Okay.
when I started taking the medication, so chemo was off the table based off of a test, called an onc test.
Okay.
So you get an onco score, and your onco score will tell you if your particular tumor would respond to chemotherapy.
Okay.
And because a lot of times they would just give you chemotherapy when you had breast cancer and it wasn't beneficial.
Right.
So what they would do, so now what they're doing is trying not to, like, introduce chemotherapy to you if they don't have to.
Gotcha.
Um so I started taking the AI drugs, the aromatase inhibitors, and
Okay.
these drugs prevent estrogen from growing in your body, or producing in your body. And I actually lost like 14 pounds the first 7 days.
Wow. As a
Yeah,
result. Mm.
yes. And I was visiting, we were on summer vacation with my husband's family, and I couldn't get out of the bathroom. I was just sick.
Mm.
So they got me back to Pittsburgh, and one of our friends knew Diana, who runs Glimmer of Hope. And she said, here's some acupuncture, just try it. I couldn't even drink water. And so I
Mm.
had acupuncture, and so I was able
Okay.
to kinda, like, drink water, but it was several years of trying to figure out what was going on, and I felt the doctors were not listening.
Okay.
And I also felt that I was not the only one.
Mm. Mhm.
So I even made commercials with the hospital saying that there needs to be more of communication between, patient and doctor.
'Cause that's critical. This is a life-changing diagnosis. And so what people, women, I'll say women for this, women and men, but in your case, what women need is information. And I know, having supported my own mother, information. I need to be able to feel comfortable that I can ask questions. I need to feel comfortable that if I sound, how teachers say, no question is a dumb question. If I ask one that seems stupid to you, I need to be comfortable
Mhm.
to. that question and feel like I'm in a safe environment. And so that seems like that is critical for the process.
I will say this. I don't know if I asked enough questions at some point.
Mm,
I'm kind of stubborn, and so I got quiet, but I will say that now I'm on what they quote unquote call the survivorship side of breast cancer.
okay.
I'm still a breast cancer patient. I'm gonna always be a breast cancer patient.
o-
So, there are things that are still happening to my body as a result of being on the medication, as a result of things changing, but I did not ask enough questions. And in my advocacy, I have actually come across a person who actually does ask a lot of questions. And I think that that is very important. So you as someone that is supporting your mom,
Mhm.
as a caregiver, um, I think that that is commendable that you constantly ask questions because that's what you should do. I mean, it's a life,
Right.
and they should understand that instead of just like, "Oh, this doesn't fit in the textbook. Here, just, do this."
Right. Right. And like you said, I mean, this is a life and
Mhm,
that has changed. We talk about here with Pivot, we talk to folks who have intentional or unexpected changes in their life. And
mhm,
no expects to be diagnosed. We get up in the
yeah,
morning, do we do. We don't think like, oh, by the way, you know.
yeah.
Um, but it's an unexpected change in our life. But what I love is we say at the end, but you're still winning. You're still and so I want to shift a little bit, Shawnika, talk about it's dope to serve, right? So how do you what you've been through, and I more than just it's more than just cancer. Um, I want to read something that's on your website. It's dope to serve. We are dedicated to rallying volunteers, acquiring donations, and increasing awareness for partner nonprofits actively working to tackle and overcome healthcare disparities and challenges for patients, families, and caregivers. And so that's broad. It's like we're here to help. We're here to fill in the gap. We're here to provide for those disparities that we discover. Talk about
Mhm.
that.
So I am one of those disparities. I fell through the cracks. I don't fit into the clinical trials of the symptoms, but if you read the clinical trial paperworks, I do fall into those. And what happens is that when you don't fall into like the clinical trial paperwork or the medical documents, then they start to just kind of dismiss you.
Mm,
Um, and what I started to find out, especially in Pittsburgh, was that there were a lot of women that were, and I don't want to generalize Pittsburgh and like put a panic or fear there, but
right,
in my experience, what I was seeing is that a lot of women would hit 5 years and they had a new occurrence or reoccurrence or was metastatic. And I was trying to understand that if we're all taking the medication, if we're all doing treatment, and what I found out is that a lot of women, once you've had radiation or chemotherapy, the moment you start feeling side effects from this pill that you have to take for
right.
5 or 10 years, you're like, "Yep, I'm out." Especially when the
Mm,
doctor is like, and not to dismiss acupuncture, but at the time they were like, "Oh, just do acupuncture." And I was like, I just lost 20 pounds in a week
right.
and a half." And they're like, whatever. Or I'm like, I can't, I feel nauseous all day or I'm throwing up. And so at the time, you don't want to hear acupuncture, but if there was more explanation into it
Mm,
and more empathy and compassion, then I
right.
think that that would have gone down easier because I went down like a couple year path of trying to figure out what was going on. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's critical. So what is It's Dope to Serve doing today? What are ways that we are serving? I don't know if you want to tell the
So
story of It's Dope to Serve. It's a pretty cool, but.
So when I got here in Pittsburgh, I was advocating. I did some town halls, some commercials, and I did a health fair with the Pittsburgh Steelers, UPMC Hospital, and
Okay.
Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And after that, I was like, okay, God, I'm done advocating. We're going to Philadelphia. I'm going to hang out with my family and just enjoy everything.
Right.
And I kept wrestling, like just wrestling with something. And one day I was late going to church as always, but we made it. And the sermon was actually on being in service. And so Pastor Brad was talking about we all know who the 12 disciples are, but there are 72 other disciples that put forth Christianity. And that's why we have it where, across the globe. And so then he gave a stat that like only like 7 to 10% of Americans are volunteering. And then there was another stat that he gave in the same sort like during that time, and he said that they found out in psychology that you get dopamine when you are in service and you volunteer. And so then he kind of quipped, he said, he said, so it's dope to serve. And I was looking around like,
You're
did
like,
anybody yes,
you're
I was
speaking to me.
like, did anybody else hear that? And then I'm
Right.
like, okay, maybe that's just my Kelly School of Business, in my head, Indiana University. And then I'm like, so I waited 3 weeks to see if anybody else heard what I heard. And so I kept checking and nobody did. I bought up everything.
It was for you.
I mean, yeah, I found out it was for me. But my other thing was is that I didn't want to have another breast cancer non-for-profit. One, we move being in the NFL, we move around a lot. So I don't want to like drown out somebody else or snuff out something else. So I also did my homework and I started looking around, and there's so many great non-for-profits. Like in Columbus, Ohio, there is Not Just October. Um,
Mm,
then there's a bunch in DC. So my thing is that, being in the NFL, there's a platform there, right? No
mm,
matter how big or small. Of course, I have a tiny one, but it's the fact that you're supposed to use your God-given platform, talents, tithes for His glory and His good. And so, um, we're also working on a vaccine. There's one in Pittsburgh. The first trial is there. And with Rutgers, we're bringing a clinical trial that will prevent breast cancer.
they are working on a clinical trial, you said,
Yes.
that will prevent breast cancer in general or certain subtypes, or just
So it is targeting the subtype of DCIS in
okay,
situ. However, DCIS in situ is the start of any breast cancer.
got
So
you.
if you can stop this particular breast cancer, then you're going to stop a more aggressive breast cancer from happening.
Wow. How does it feel to
Um,
be a part of something like this?
um, I'm a doer. I don't think I sit back and think about that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and this is what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like if you should never be a gatekeeper. So if there is something that is going to help people, no matter who gets the credit, you should do it.
Hmm.
And I think that's how I feel. Like this is, at the end of the day, this is UPMC and this is going to be Rutgers University. I am just somebody that connected the organizations and I'm advocating for it because I don't want, my granddaughters or my sons' wives or even my sons, because breast cancer can affect men as well.
Right. Right.
Um, and also the biggest thing is that, we're looking at early detection, but what about prevention? And when you prevent it, you prevent and I think a lot of people, when they think of prevention, they think, oh, well, you won't get breast cancer. Well, this is what prevention looks like. The person that could have got diagnosed with breast cancer doesn't have to go every 3 months to an oncologist for 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
Um, the person that could have not gotten diagnosed with breast cancer doesn't have to take drugs that may alter how their body does things hormonally.
Okay.
Um, that could be mental health, that could be, your GI system, that could be so many different things.
Hmm.
Also, hospital visits and being in the hospital and the aggressiveness of the breast cancer.
Hmm.
Um, that takes us away from our families. It takes us away from things that we would like to do. Um, and so I think people will have to also think of it like, what does it mean to have breast cancer?
Is there a patient or someone out there where they are going to be able to identify that they need this medication or they need this clinical trial?
So
Um,
right now, the one in Pittsburgh, the qualifications for the trial to be a participant in Pittsburgh, you have to be 55 and over. Or I'm sorry, I keep
okay.
saying 55 and over, just assuming that if you're 55, you're in menopause. But I've actually had a cousin that had a baby at like 57. So it
Wow.
yes, so it's actually you have to have a diagnosis of DCIS, and
Okay.
you have to
Okay.
be menopausal, postmenopausal.
Okay. I see. I see. That
But for the Rutgers, the second phase, we're gonna attempt to lower the age,
okay.
um, or the menopausal diagnoses, like, so
Got
you don't have to be menopausal. Um,
okay.
but they have to work some things out with that, just making sure that, participants if younger participants have something to protect them to make sure that there's nothing more aggressive. So, for instance, if you get diagnosed with the BRCA gene, it doesn't mean that you have breast cancer, but you're more prone to. So sometimes your doctor will, sometimes you may decide to have surgery, or you may decide to take the medication that people with breast cancer or that have been diagnosed with breast cancer do take. So there is a woman that actually did take the vaccine,
Okay.
and she has had surgery October 2024, and she
Mm,
is cancer free.
wow. Come on.
Yes.
God is good.
Yes, he is. He is. And the doctor that is creating this vaccine, she has created several vaccines,
Okay.
cancer vaccines. And so, from my understanding, on one of the calls that I was on, there are 400 people in Pittsburgh walking around with her vaccine in their body.
400.
400 people. So, I mean, so this is why, like, when you say, "How do you feel?" I'm like, I really feel like the heroes are, Dr. Finn, who created this vaccine,
Yeah.
or, Dr. Diego, or even Glimmer of Hope, Diana with Glimmer of Hope, because, I
Mm,
wouldn't be advocating if she didn't have Glimmer of Hope and her whole philosophy that, to your point, that, advocating, um, or we may have had this conversation somewhere else, but she doesn't believe that she should be making a salary from what she does.
mm. Okay.
So 100% of what we raise goes to the programs that we're set up.
Do you go into hospitals? Do you meet with
Mhm.
uh, breast cancer patients?
Yes, I do. Some people I actually have physically met. Some people I've only met on the phone. Some people I've only met through video. So it just depends on how they got my contact information and
Right.
what they're comfortable with. I think, and then some people I've only text with. I don't think I've ever even heard their voice.
But just providing that support to them by any
Mhm.
means necessary, and if that's just through text message.
Yes.
Do you
I will say the toughest time, and I think this was really tough. There was a woman, so we also have a metastatic clinic. I think it's the only one on the East Coast. And somebody had found out that I was an advocate here, and there was a woman that was stage 4, and
Mhm.
I could not get her to Pittsburgh before she passed.
Mm.
Um, and I will say that this was, I think, last year, and I will say that that was really heavy for me because I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I was going to like a celebration of life, not an actual like funeral. And
Okay.
so when I walked in, I just saw this little boy who was like in second grade in a
Mm.
tux. And I knew immediately that that was her son. And
Wow.
then a part of me was like, I'm going to be completely honest. I wanted to run. Like, I wanted to just be like, nope. And then something was like, how are you going to advocate if you can't see the
Mm,
entirety? And
mhm.
so when I got up there to say my goodbyes to her, I saw her husband and I was like, hi, and he was like, I know exactly who you are. He said, thank you so much. Uh,
We've already talked a little bit about how you got the name It's Dope to Serve, so we know you go to church. Um, how how did God fit into, that whole mental health, the whole experience period? I mean, did you feel like further away from him? Did you draw closer to him? Did you feel like the relationship ebbed and flowed? Like, how did that come into play for you?
Um, I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of upset with him because I was like,
Mm,
God, this is not a part of the plan of me living to close to 100. So,
right, right, right,
but he also was just like, just because you get diagnosed with something does not mean you're not gonna live to be 100.
right.
Um, so it did like ebb and flow, but I think that I ultimately got closer to him and decided to get closer to him because I needed to understand how to deal with a lot of the things that were going on because it changed the dynamic of all my relationships.
Right.
Um, and I needed to understand and mainly my relationship with myself, like the way I viewed myself. Like I don't look how I looked before I was diagnosed. I don't feel the way I felt before I was diagnosed. So I had to like really talk to him and figure out, okay, how do I become more comfortable in this new skin that I'm in with
Mm,
this diagnosis? What if my symptoms never go away?
mm,
I had to finally apply what I was learning all these years in church because I didn't grow up in church, but when I decided to get saved, so I was just like, okay, either I'm going to believe and walk on these things or I'm just going to not, I'm going to drown. You know what I mean? Like
right,
when Peter
right,
would get off the boat, like,
right.
So I started making these, I don't know if you heard the movie War Room, but I started
Yes.
putting these sticky notes on the wall in Pittsburgh, and no matter how I felt, I just kept writing them, and I think that was just kind of like my way of talking to God, and then every night I would listen to the Bible. Now, when I got to Job, I remember I tried to stop it, and then I tried to
If y'all don't know Job, y'all need to go listen to Job's story. It's a little much. Okay. It was a lot of
and in the backdrop of all that,
and
we were praying about being in Pittsburgh because Brandon was interviewing for
right.
the GM job. And so I was like, yeah, we don't want to hear Job right now.
Job went through some things, but he came out on the winning side. Come on here.
You know what? So, you know what? Your purpose is not painless.
Uh,
That is the one thing I'm learning is that your purpose
mm,
is not painless.
ooh,
So
that's
yes,
good.
getting closer to God, it helped me not look at myself,
Right.
which is what I needed. I was like, yeah, we can't. Yeah.
When you say that your purpose is not painless, it's like, ooh, Lord, that's a good reminder that, because sometimes people go through some painful things and then they bow out. Like, I can't, I cannot do this. And it goes back to
Yeah.
spouses because spouses who leave their, someone who is going through their wife who might be going through cancer, it's
Yeah.
like this is all a part of your purpose too. This is all a part of, if you know
Oh,
who God
wow.
is,
Yeah.
part of you experiencing, you have a testimony of your own. You are able to share in and pour into someone. But if you don't go through it, you can't. you'll come across someone, a spouse, and you'll be lost because you left. That's
Yeah.
a whole nother.
Girl, look at you.
That's
Not, even when I said, I've endured this,
hmm
but it didn't break me. When our pastor's wife was here, she talked about a bone breaking.
mm,
And, they break it and then they reset it. And when it's reset and they take the cast off, it's stronger than what it was before it was broken.
come on.
And so I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'll endure this, but it won't break me.
That's right.
And if it does break me, guess what? It's just making me stronger in God's in God's strength. So yeah.
What do you tell someone who has it in their heart to help? And it's not just breast cancer, but they see a need. They want to they really want to move forward and do something.
I would say pray about it first.
Okay.
Make sure that you're not doing something that is out of your timing, out of season, that is not quite because think about it. If I had started a non-for-profit, the non-for-profit would strictly be for breast cancer.
Right.
Um, but that's not God's plan. So I would say pray about it, but then the number 2 thing after you are praying about it is make sure that you have a good set of friends around you and a good team around
Mm-hmm.
you. Like, you have to have people that are smarter than you. You cannot think that you are the smartest person in the room. And I think that's one of the biggest issues is that people wanna run a company or a business because they want to run something, but to be quite honest, the best leaders are the people that step back and follow.
Mm,
You just
that's
put a
good.
directive out there and say, "Hey, this is, like for in my point, this is, what God has planned for me, but you all use your talents because God has clearly led you and us together for this reason." So
Mm-hmm.
you have to trust the people that you put in place, but you also have to have cheerleaders. Um, there are times where I'm always like, yeah, I don't know if I should do this. I don't want anybody to see my face. And then I do have a friend that she's like, it's not about you, friend.
Come on
So
here.
yeah. So when she says that, I'm like, okay, I'm not asking for me. And then, or she'll say, what does it mean to you if they say no?
Mm,
Um, and I'm just like, "Okay, that makes sense." So, even with the fundraiser that's coming up, it's just like, okay, it fell in my lap, and I'm trusting God with the rest of it.
yes. Tell us briefly about the fundraiser, by the way.
Oh, yes, on February 24th, we are having a fundraiser on the, Spirit of Philadelphia, and we will be raising funds for the breast cancer vaccine, as well as breast cancer services and education with Rutgers University.
And I just
And
want
I
to say one thing because I know you what you meant to say. You meant to say April 24th.
Oh, what did I
April,
say?
February, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
I'm still
okay.
stuck in Super Bowl mode. Yes,
As
April 20
as you should.
April 24th, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
April 24th. We asked everybody to be there about 7 o'clock, and we're going to push off at 7:30.
Okay. Awesome.
So yes, and we will actually be honoring post-communist Katherine Johnson. And so I think that's pretty cool, as well as
That
some
is
other
cool.
doctors. Yes.
That's pretty dope.
And the doctor who created the vaccine.
I love it. So, what is the one, at least, last thing that you would like to say to the people out there? I know that you want to encourage
Yes.
folks there. What is it that, this is, if you had something to say that you definitely want to make sure that people know, what would it be?
I would say early detection, early detection. So get your mammogram early. If there's a family history, push your doctor to write something up so that you can get a mammogram and get checked because it is getting diagnosed earlier and earlier. Also, if you have dense breasts, ask for a backup. diagnostic. So do not
Mm.
take that first one.
Oh, that's good to
And
know.
so that's what I would say. Yes, I would say, right now, because we don't have anything other than early detection, pretty soon, God willing, we
Yes,
will have early prevention. But right now, the best, safest way to protect yourself is to get detected early.
that's
Get your
good.
mammograms.
That's good.
Yes.
That is good. So where can people find you? You're on Instagram, right?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. I have a website, it's dopetoserve.org.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, those are the places that we are right now. Oh, and
So
then
we
also on Instagram, we will be having our It's Dope to Serve site up soon too.
site. Okay, good, good, good. That's good. So they can find you here. You can see her
Yes,
Instagram handle on the screen there. Please connect with her. They can message you and ask any
yes,
questions
yes,
if and please know, listen, Shawnika she will provide you with some resources. She'll send you,
yes.
in the direction that you need for your journey. So I want to thank you.
Thank you, thank you,
But
thank you.
thank you so much for joining the Pivot family and sharing your Pivot experience.
Thank you so much for having me. I really truly appreciate this opportunity. So we really thank you so much.
We always talk to folks who have intentional or unexpected changes in their life, but they're still winning. I want to thank you for joining me, and we'll be back. We'll be back next week.